committee. If committee members will take their seats. If my WebEx director will tell me who's on WebEx. Committee members first, please.
Francis Evercamp.
Right. Is that the only one?
Yes.
Is my vice chair not on?
No.
When she comes on, would you notify me then?
Will do.
Thank you. Good morning, committee. I hope everybody's enjoyed their few days off. We have one hearing. I thought we were maybe work a bill today, but I'm missing several members on WebEx. So just to let you know, we're going to be working bills the rest of the week. If you're not going to be here, you need to tell me before 11 o'clock the day before so that I can get someone appointed to sit in your chair. For the Democrats, if they would notify the ranking member so that he can get someone to represent you that day. But I need to know before 11 o'clock, before we go into session, so that I can get somebody appointed. As you know, we cannot work bills. You cannot vote on a bill unless you are present in the Capitol. So, Representative Clayton, you have a question?
I do have a question, Mr. Chair. I noticed that on our agenda Friday, it says possible action on bills previously heard, but oftentimes we do cancel on Friday. So just trying to figure out if I should be planning on making the drive in, have a family thing on Thursday.
Thank you. And you are correct. I have it at call of the chair. If we don't get our work done this week, we will work on Fridays. We got 3 weeks left. And so I would suggest that you come to committee as much as possible. Representative Heiberger?
Yes, I'd just like to request, Mr. Chairman, that you give us a day's notice of the bills that we're going to work, that we may work on the next day.
Representative, I will do that. And today I will announce some bills for tomorrow.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
But if you're not going to be here tomorrow, if you're on WebEx, Representative Potter is not on WebEx, is she? Not yet? Okay. If anybody comes on, please let me know. Adam Thomas is on WebEx. He must be driving in. Is that correct? Okay, so we got Adam Thomas and Representative Arncamp. That's the two. Thank you. First thing up, bill introductions from committee members. Seeing no bill introductions from committee members, bill introductions from the audience. Seeing no bill introductions from the audience, bill introductions is closed. Committee, we have one hearing. It's on House Bill 2710. If you would go into your files, pull that bill up. We have a couple of proponents. First, I'll ask the reviser to give us an overview. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, you've got a pretty good size audience for a wine bill here. There's two
and I think most of them are underage.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's a fairly simple bill. There's two statutes that are amended. One is Section 1 deals with the Liquor Control Act and the definitions. You turn to page 2 in domestic fortified wine. The definition is changed from current law 14% to not more than 20%, to increase that to 16%, not more than 20%. And domestic table wine the definition is increased from 14%, not more than 14%, to not more than 16%. The Second Amendment is on a statute dealing with a gallonage tax, and that appears on page 4 and 5. And it makes the same change to the 30 cents per gallon on wine containing 16% or less by volume, and 75 cents per gallon on wine containing more than 16%, and so on. So anyway, the percentage change affects the gallonage tax and so on. And the collection, I think you'll hear from a representative of the ABC about possible impact.
Thank you. Questions of the reviser? Seeing no questions of the reviser, thank you, Mike. First proponent, Tyler Rutt with the Wine Institute. Good morning, sir, and welcome to Federal and State Affairs.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of this great committee. My name is Tyler Rudd. I am the Central States Counsel for the Wine Institute. Wine Institute is a trade association made up of about 1,000 California wineries and associated businesses. And I am here in support of House Bill 2710. During the Special Committee on Liquor Law Modernization last year, I briefly spoke about Congress passing a law in 2020 that included a provision that raised the alcohol by volume threshold for table wine from 14 to 16%. This has been in place since post-prohibition because wine back then, it was very difficult to make wine over 14% without the addition of spirits, making it fortified wine. Kansas law has a law that was aligned with federal law and has been since then. So in 2020, Congress recognized the evolution of wine and grape growing because now it's much easier for wine to be made over 14% simply because the climate has changed, the process of grape growing has changed. The sugar content ultimately is what has changed. The Brix, which is the fancy name for the sugar content, has increased in grapes. So when the grapes are ripe, the sugar content gets a little bit higher, and during the fermentation process, that increases the alcohol content. Now it is much more difficult for wines to be below 14% than it is for them to be above. So Congress recognized this. They increased the threshold from 14 to 16% for table wine, and 2710 just continues to align Kansas law with federal law. And if you have any questions for me now, great. If not, also Larry and Brown will be here throughout the day and the week.
We're going to go ahead and go to questions. We only have two conferees, so questions for the conferee. Go ahead, please. Representative Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is port considered a table wine?
No, port is fortified wine. They typically add a spirit to it to increase the alcohol content.
So at an average port, what content is in that?
The average port for alcohol by volume is, I would say, anywhere between 20 and 24.
Wow. Okay.
Well, maybe 18 to 24. Just kind of depends.
No wonder my wife likes it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Further questions of the conferee? Seeing none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our second conferee is someone well known to the committee, Representative Duncan, with the Kansas Wine and Spirits Wholesalers. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to say me too. These are wine grapes. I always like to have a little show and tell because then I figure later on you might remember, oh, he talked to us about wine grapes. You'll notice they're small. They're not real wine grapes. They're plastic. But anyway, you'll notice they're smaller than regular sort of eating grapes. And what if he, oh, he's got a grape over there. We can share grapes later. Anyway, so what's happened is over the course of time, the heat level is risen, and as he commented, the Brix. I only know about Brix level because I once went to a seminar in California called Winemaking for Lawyers. It was a good seminar. I didn't get any CLE credit, but it was a great seminar. And so the Brix level is the sugar, and what's happened is the heat on the grapes has increased the amount of sugar. And so when you add the yeast, which then converts it to the alcohol content has risen up above the 14%. And that's the reason Congress recognized what the problem was and said, okay, we'll go 14 to 16%. And the fortified wine, it does affect Kansas in the sense that we have domestic table wine. We want to be consistent with the federal law. We do tax the domestic table wines at a level different than the fortified wines. Fortified wines are at 75%. I don't think there's that much fortified wine, to be quite honest with you. It's the Mogan Davids, it's some brandies and the like, although it's probably a little difficult to know exactly how many of the light wines contents are going to increase and be affected, but shouldn't have much effect. I would say to you, over the time, you're seeing about a 5% tax increase in alcohol taxes year after year in terms of total tax collections anyway. So in the grand scheme of things, it shouldn't have much impact there. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be glad to stand for any questions you might have.
Representative Clayton.
Thank you. I actually do have a question in regards to labeling, especially because I think there can often be a disconnect when it comes to just what looks like a regular bottle of table wine versus a bottle of port or fortified wine. Labeling is done, that's a federal standard, right? Not a state standard? Okay. Thank you.
The Trade and Tax Bureau of the Department of Treasury sets the standards for labeling. And when you apply, you get what's known as a certificate of label approval. It's filed with the state, and the state won't let you have your product sold here unless you have this, what they call the COLA. And they prescribe exactly what does go on the label. And you have to actually give a copy of the label to the TTB before they will approve it. So whatever's on it is a federal government requirement.
Thank you. Further questions? Seeing none,
Thank you.
I would direct your committee's attention to Jason Watkins with the Kansas Beer Wholesalers. He is a proponent. It's written only. Anyone else appearing as a proponent? Seeing none, I have no opponents listed. Is there opponents appearing here today? Again, seeing none, I will go to the neutrals. Neutrals, we have Debbie Beavers, Director of Alcoholic Beverage Control. Good morning, Director. Welcome to Federal and State Affairs again.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Debbie Beavers. I'm the Director of Alcoholic Beverage Control. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. We are neutral on this bill. This bill does, as you've heard, align us with the federal changes. I would like to point out for your information that this bill will cause the ABC to have to edit just over 6,200 labels to change them from fortified wine to the light wine category. And that only leaves 536 labels that will be registered as fortified wine. There will be a negative impact to the gallonage tax, but we don't have a good way to predict that because just because a product is registered does not mean it will be ordered and distributed in the state. I would also like to point out to the committee that the definition of domestic fortified wine is amended here, and domestic wine is manufactured in the state of Kansas. There is no definition of fortified wine in the statute, so that's just for your information. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions for the conferee? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other neutrals appearing here today? Seeing none, I will close the hearing on House Bill 2710. Committee, I'm looking at if there's any opposition to this bill. If there is, we will wait. If there is not, I'm going to entertain a motion from my ranking member to suspend the rule and work the bill. Is there any opposition? Seeing none. Representative Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I would move that HB 2710, the rule be suspended and HB 2710 be brought to the agenda to be worked today.
Thank you. Is there a second? Representative Epley is a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. This rule has been suspended. I will look to the ranking member for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that HB 2710 be worked today and moved out favorably.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Representative Epley. Further discussion? Seeing none. Yes, Representative Hoyt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to follow up. This is probably a question for the reviser to see about a definition of the domestic fortified wine. Is that necessary? That was brought up in the testimony, and I don't know if we need to address that with an amendment, a conceptual amendment of some sort, or if that's something we could discuss.
So what is your question?
Do we have any concerns that there isn't a definition for domestic fortified wine?
Reviser?
I don't know. I was going to ask Debbie Beavers if there is a reason to add it. It hasn't been in the statutes for a number of years. So I'm not sure I'm the right one to ask the question.
Well, let me
answer.
direct that question to the director. Would that be all right with you?
Yes, sorry, I didn't know we were going to do this. I'm fine doing this now, but if you're willing, I appreciate that, Mr. Chair.
I will do that. Is Debbie still here? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was merely pointing out we don't have a definition of fortified wine that is defined. There is domestic fortified wine, and that means that it's made in the state. In the gallonage tax statute, it has the breakdown of the tax bracket. So I was merely pointing out we don't have one that just says fortified wine, and that's a decision up to the committee.
Thank you. Was that helpful?
Yes, I'm going to be able to be supportive of this, but in the meantime, I'm going to do a little research about the differences and if maybe we need to do something on the floor as far as just fortified wine. But I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. No further questions? Yes, Representative Epley.
I'm not trying to slow this down, Mr. Chairman. Would this be an item to put on the consent calendar?
If it is non-controversial, it appears to be non-controversial.
Yes, sir.
If the maker of the motion would revise his motion to include putting it on the consent calendar, I would entertain that. Would you like that?
Are we ready to move the bill?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that HB 2710 be moved out favorably and placed on the consent calendar.
Thank you. No further discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. It will be passed out and placed on the consent calendar. Committee, the bills that I want to look at tomorrow, Representative Heiberger, would be House Bill 2677, House Bill 2462, which is the tribal bill. And we have other hearings, which will be, the hearing will be on 2715. I don't think that will take a long time, so I'm trying to work both these bills. Tomorrow, I will announce the bills for the following day. Understand? Okay. Anything else for the good of the committee? Please let me know if you're not going to be here, and those are on WebEx. If I do not hear from you, I'm going to get someone appointed for you tomorrow. Very well. Oh, yes. One other thing I want to take up, approval of the minutes for February 1st, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 21. Connie has sent them all out. I'll look to my ranking member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the approval of the minutes as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a second? A second from Representative Thomas. Further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Minutes are approved. Committee, I will see you tomorrow morning. We are adjourned.